On the other hand, what do you think of this, Jack? Matt Maiocco went on KMBR and disputed the whole notion that the 49ers have soured on Trey Lance. He said, I dispute the notion that the 49ers have soured on Trey Lance. He says, I think personally, in my opinion, they like him now more than they ever have since they've had him with the 49ers, but they just don't know how he will perform. Nobody knows how he'll perform if given the opportunity. Then he went on to say, I think Darnold is in the same position. They like him a lot. There's a lot of talent there. We've talked about how he can throw the football. They just don't know about him either, how he'd perform if given the opportunity in this offense. Maiocco also believes that Brock Purdy will be the starter, even if he's still recovering and unable to play during the lead up to the season, saying, I see the 49ers going into training camp with a pretty clear cut number one quarterback, even though he might not play much, if any, in the preseason. But I think their number one is pretty clear cut. The number two is, I'd say, equal footing and kind of a TBD situation. What do you think? I mean, Mayoko's pretty informed, but, you know, it's when you hear Breer and all these guys basically saying they're going with Darnold over Lance, I mean, and last year they gave Lance the starting job, and now he could be demoted to third on the depth chart. I mean, I don't know how first of all, something changed along the way, right? I mean, something changed. He was designated to be the starter. He got hurt. He's barely played. And now suddenly here's Darnold, here's Brandon Allen, and all these insiders are whispering that Darnold's going to be number two. And Mayoko's like, they haven't soured on Trey Lance. So what do you make of Matty's comments?
I think he's right on. It's the closest thing to what I've been saying all offseason. And here's the thing, like what Matt's doing here is the same thing that I've been doing, is that I listen to what the team is telling me. And what the team is telling me has stated all offseason is Brock Purdy blew. And I'm gonna lose my own words to say what they've told me. Brock Purdy had a chance and he blew it out. That's why he's got the opportunity to stay as a starter, because when he got an opportunity, he showed us that he can do it. Left no doubt about his ability to do it. With Trey Lance, we still really like Trey Lance. They still really believe in him. This is what they've said, really believe in him. We still think of him the same as the day that we drafted him, all those types of things. But he needs to play, and it's going to be hard for us to get. We have to see if we can figure that out. It's kind of what both Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have stated. The stuff with Sam Darnold, we like what he does. He's shown everything as far as a guy that there's a reason why he was taken third overall in the draft. They've spoken very highly of all these guys. You don't expect him to say something negative about any of them. But what Matt has said is the way I feel about it. Brock Purdy is the starting quarterback unless he gets beat out. I think they do like Trey Lance, but Trey Lance needs a development. And, if he can beat out Brock Purdy in training camp, that's great for them. But he's going to have to beat him out. And so there's that standpoint of it. And then let me step back. One more thing, because Spider brought it up, and I think this is because I was having this conversation not on Twitter, but in messaging somebody on Twitter who was asking me some questions. And let me ask you this, Larry: why would
I don't answer questions? No,
I know this is the position, right? But this is, and I'm not saying this because I know anything specific about this player or anything like that. But one of the destinations that a lot of people have talked about for Trey Lance, if there was a trade, was the Washington football team or the Washington Commanders, whatever they're called now. Why would Washington want to develop Trey Lance over developing Sam Howell? And the reason I asked that question is Sam Howell played over 1,000 games in college. He's been through a lot. There's definitely some upside that they like there. He's probably had, I don't even know what his numbers are in the NFL in terms of how many throws he had, but why would they pivot off of Sam Howell, who was, I think, a third round draft pick, fourth round guy? Right. Who's going to be a cheaper guy for a guy who they know that they're going to have to develop, who's going to be a lot more expensive, whose contract is going to be coming up. And just after this year, they need to make a decision if they even want to use the 5th year option or if they want to let it go out and maybe not be able to re-sign him because he's going to want so much money. I mean, why would you take Sam Howell? Why would you take Trey Lance over Sam Howell? I'm not saying this because I think Sam Howell's better. I'm just looking at this from the history of Howell in terms of what he's done in college, the amount of
I don't think it's instead of, Jack. I think it's in addition to, right? I just think that they don't. I mean, why would they do it? I'm not saying that they would. You'd have to have some belief in Trey Lance. But I don't know. Even if Washington traded for Trey Lance, I still don't think they would put him on the field. I don't think anybody's in a rush to put Trey on the field right now. Here's the question I would have. Okay, let's say the Niners really believe in Trey, but think it's going to take time, more time than they initially thought. Okay, so that's, you say, what's changed? That's changed. We thought he was raw, but then we got him in here. We realized he's totally raw, but we still love him as a guy. We still love his traits, and we still want to develop him. What do you think of this? Let him play this year at his contract, 5th highest cap rate on the team. And then at the end of the year, and I don't know if this is even possible, but if he really wants to be here and you really want him here, but he's not ready to play, but you think you don't want to trade him because you feel like he's going to develop somewhere else, why not tear up his contract, give him a contract that's really much, much lower, and then just keep him in-house and keep developing him and eventually let him get there. If he acknowledges that there's no immediate opportunity out there for him. Like, yeah, if I'm Trey, why the hell would I do that if I can start for the Commanders or the Titans or one of these other teams? But let's just say there's no team in the NFL. What if John Lynch says to his agent, hey, I've talked to every team in the NFL. Nobody's going to give us anything real today for him because nobody feels like he's ready to play. There is no minor league system, so there's no real avenue for him to play right now. But we love him as a guy. Our problem with him is his cap number. What do you say we rip up his contract, give him a long-term contract for far less money, keep him in-house, and then just take the pressure off and stay with developing him, and then just bring him along instead of forcing him into this, you got to play, bring him along slower, take away the money aspect of it. Wouldn't that be a solution, or do you not see that as a solution?
The redoing his contract thing, I think, is totally a solution if he's up to it, right? If he wants to stay here, if he's willing to be here long term and really try to develop over the next few years and all that kind of stuff, then that is, I wouldn't be against that. You've got to you got to do it in a way that helps everybody else out on the team. In terms of playing him this year, he's got to go out and show that he's the best of the guys. I think that's the only thing that's the only area. I just don't think you just say, okay, Trey, you're going to be the guy regardless. I don't think you do that. But if you let them go out and you compete and he outperforms Brock Purdy in training camp, and that's the guy that you think's going to be the starter week 1, and Trey Lance starts week 1 and the 49ers are winning. And we go back to that question earlier about, if Trey Lance was to start week 1 and the 49ers win, it's going to be a controversy. Well, we know from history with Kyle Shanahan, if Lance has already won the job and he is performing at a high level and the team is winning games, he's not going to change the quarterback just to change the quarterback. He's going to keep playing the guy that's doing well. So I could see, the direction kind of what you're pointing out would be one that I think would be a very big positive for the 49ers. And that's the thing. It doesn't matter if it's Brock Purdy or Trey Lance, right? Or if it's Sam Darnold. It doesn't matter. The 49ers want the quarterback that's going to help them win games. And if Trey Lance can show that he's capable of helping them win games and they're not winning in spite of them, I think you just keep rolling with them. And so that isn't a bad route to take if he's open to it.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm Trey and I can't start anywhere, I'd rather sit on the bench in San Francisco behind Brock Purdy, who I like as a guy, than sit behind a couple guys in Washington or sit behind a couple guys on a different team. The only way I really want to move on is if somebody's going to put me on the field right away because I think I need to play. We're really circling around the main flaw of the NFL, that there is no minor league system. If this were a baseball situation, they just send him to Sacramento and he would go play for, a bunch of games and develop. And then if he did really, really well there, it would be like, hey, Trey's kicking butt in Sacramento, bring him up. But they don't have a minor league system. So it's like, how do you develop if you don't play? It's like you need experience to be good enough to play, but then you got to play to get the experience. But then if you play and the team loses, then the head coach could be fired. So then the coach is going to want to put the guy who's more refined. It's a circular thing.